Okay, so we're going to do a state of the Bitcoin and traditional economies. And this is typically where I do my 5 mile walk. As in the past, same thing, same route. Out here trying to get some exercise at the same time as letting you guys know what's happening with your traditional economy and the Bitcoin economy itself. Worth about $2 trillion almost. And we're making progress. It looks like we're well integrated into the traditional economies. We have pension funds, family offices, ETFs, SEC commissioner who's pro-Bitcoin, David Sachs in the current Trump administration, Bennett, what's his name? I think Bennett, a lot of pro-crypto people, Cynthia Loomis, you name it. We got a bunch of pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin people surrounding and in the Trump administration. Okay, so we're in a very good position. The fundamentals far exceed the price. The price is nowhere near reflective of what the fundamentals are looking like. Okay, so sometimes you have a disconnect between the fundamentals and an asset like a stock or something, and the price needs to catch up to fundamentals. The good news is those people who think $87,000 is expensive, wait until the price catches up with the fundamentals. That $86,000 is going to look very, very, very cheap. Okay, so you guys have an opportunity in front of you like no other. Never in history has a 16-year-old asset has an opportunity to do the equivalent of what Eric Balchunas, ETF analyst Eric Balchunas calls a grand slam in 4 different areas. Okay, this is equivalent of the grand slam, 4 of them in the 16th year, in the total of 16 years since Bitcoin has been in existence. It's the grand slam for us, and you guys need to take a victory lap. And those of you who are not participating, you don't realize it, you don't know it, but you are participating. When Bitcoin is indexed by way of MicroStrategy, by way of a number of publicly traded companies that have integrated Bitcoin into their treasuries or balance sheets because of this FASB ruling that says you can now put this asset in your treasury on your company's books and treat it like any other security. That is a big deal. That means a lot of you are going to be investing in Bitcoin directly or indirectly, and you won't know it. Okay, this is going to be like the internet offering HTTP or TCP/IP, whatever you call it is, the protocol on the internet. You don't think about it, you don't care about it, but you surf the internet and those protocols are built in and they're part of the background infrastructure. Okay, so this is the way Bitcoin is integrated, being integrated into the financial economy, traditional economy. Okay, so some of the things just to highlight real quickly. The SEC has dropped a number of cases in regards to Bitcoin or crypto-related companies under the previous administration. They were chased out of town. They were chased overseas. They were shut down. They were fined and penalized, over-regulated in the United States. That's a total sea change. We're in a total sea change now. We don't have that type of situation. These companies are coming back. Coinbase is hiring thousands of people. Other companies in the crypto space are hiring. They're looking for talent. So if you need a job, you want a job, you probably need to look at this growing area as compared to some of the other areas where there's massive layoffs. Okay, so do yourself a favor. Get your kids, get yourself into this new growing industry and try to get away from the legacy industries that are declaring bankruptcies. Every single day there are bankruptcies. We have more bankruptcies in the last 2 years than I've seen in a long, long time. We're breaking records for bankruptcies. I don't care if it's regular restaurants, retail, department stores, fast food, you name it. Everybody's going belly up. 23andMe was mentioned, the genetics testing firm, going belly up yesterday. It just goes on and on and on. As you guys know, federal employees are being laid off by the tens of thousands. So you may want to get your kids or get yourself into some sort of position where you can reap the rewards of this new and growing industry. Okay? So again, on the international front, I'm looking at Europe as being a real cautionary signal in terms of what is going to play out in the very near future. The European Union is looking at a central bank digital currency they're going to impose on their citizens, and the citizens will, for the first time in a developed country, they'll get a chance to see what a surveillance currency looks like. When the ECB rolls out their CBDC, the central bank digital currency, they're going to be able to monitor transactions, limit, restrict, cancel, surveil, you name it. The CBDC is going to be very, very revealing in terms of what adoption looks like or non-adoption in a developed country. I've already seen how this plays out in other countries, China, Nigeria. Other countries have tried it, Caribbean nations. It's been a complete failure, a disappointment. Adoption looks pretty pathetic in a lot of these other countries, and it's not going to be any different in Europe. Matter of fact, the Europeans being developed, that being a developed country, we're going to see when the citizens decide, okay, I don't need to be surveilled. I don't need to tell what a minimum. I don't need to be told I can't only have so much money and this CBDC, otherwise I get penalized. Otherwise, I get surveilled. Otherwise, I get blocked and travel restrictions or whatever else happens. These are some of the outcomes that I predict that are going to take place. So keep your eye on that. The central bank digital currency, when it rolls out in Europe, I think it's going to be August or maybe September. But either way, we're going to see exactly what that looks like in the real world with a developed country like Europe, let alone China. We're going to see what this looks like in Europe. So, moving right ahead, London gold is leaving the country, massive amounts. One of the current central bank governors said he tried to play down the fact that so much gold was leaving that country. They couldn't process orders quick enough. Orders for gold making their way over into the United States by the tons are creating a devastating impact in Europe. The governor and one of the European central bank governors tried to play it down, trying to minimize it when asked, why is it taking so long to fill these orders? It used to take days, now it's taking weeks. What's the matter, you guys? You don't have any gold over there in London? What is the big problem? Well, history tells us what the problem is. When you screw up your economy to the point where nobody trusts you, nobody wants to deal with you, gold leaves your country, heads over to the other countries where people think there's a little bit more stability. So the gold is making it into the coffers in America. JP Morgan Chase and some of the other big banks are warehousing and taking possession of the gold and storing it in America. And London, again, a number of those countries, they're seeing a mass exodus. And history tells us, if you read the Money, the unauthorized biography by Felix Martin, if you read The Creature from Jekyll Island, if you read Fed Up, if you read some of these books that talk about the history of money and monetary policy in general, you can clearly see the shenanigans that are being played out and that have played out in history in relation to messing up your fiat currency in your country. This is what happens. People lose faith. You do all these desperate attempts in terms of trying to instill confidence, but the bottom line is it doesn't work, and eventually all the gold leaves your country and your currency collapses, and you do desperate things like roll out a central bank digital currency in modern times. In past times you did all sorts of other trickery, but that's smoke and mirrors. The bottom line is you fail as a country. Your currency fails and your country fails eventually, and you have to do very, very desperate things to reset the system in general. Okay, so this is what we're seeing. Anyway, Bitcoin it looks like a way of restoring confidence going forward for a number of different countries that want to make it part of the infrastructure, part of the basket of currencies, even to back up your failing fiat currency. If you issue Bitcoin-backed bonds, if you look at the Michael Saylor's strategy with his company, you can clearly see there's a case to be made in terms of what happens when you issue securities, bonds, etc., in exchange for exposure to Bitcoin. People go crazy. That's why we have so many publicly traded companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheets now, and you can buy into them and get indirect exposure to Bitcoin until you decide that you want to buy Bitcoin yourself and store it yourself in your own hardware wallet, like I do. But in the meantime, you go through ETFs, you go through publicly traded companies like MicroStrategy, which I own part of also, and you can get indirect exposure. But anyway, between the preferred stock offerings that MicroStrategy offers, between the Bitcoin bonds and such that countries like El Salvador are going to be using, and Bennett and a number of those guys in the United States government and the Treasury Department are looking at Bitcoin-related instruments as well, asset-based instruments or asset-based industry instruments in addition to bond type of instruments as well. So you're going to see a lot of that take place in Washington. It's going to be issued for the sake of the United States government and its citizens to have something, a hard currency backing bonds, backing certain things that didn't have any real backing before. Because when the dollar was backed by something tangible, the United States was in a very strong position. And I think Trump is trying to get an asset-based economy in the United States, whereby we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, whereby we have assets on the balance sheets as compared to just debt on the balance sheet. If you can circumvent what the Federal Reserve is doing and use assets versus debt, that could be a big deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get rid of this guy and try to stop what we're doing, because history typically determines that when you do something this radical and you want to change 180 degrees in terms of what's been happening, you know, a lot of times you get into trouble. And if you're really, really lucky, if you get a miracle, then you can actually change things. But anyway, that's what we're looking at. Since Bitcoin can't be changed or co-opted, it's out there in the wild, and looks like a lot of nations, a lot of citizens are forced to deal with it. So anyway, that's pretty much the state of the economy. Look forward to some very radical changes, but at the same time, look for a situation where you finally get a chance to have an economy that's migrating away from being debt-based, that's looking at asset-based system, where you actually have something that appreciates in value. And if Bitcoin gets on the balance sheet of the United States government, if it gets on the balance sheet of corporate America, and by you know, to a huge extent or something like that, you're going to see some dramatic differences. Okay, so there's Bitcoin ETFs now that I mean, we have companies that are rolling out ETFs. I mean, that are rolling out what do you call it? Portfolios filled with companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. You can literally have a mutual fund or the equivalent of a mutual fund, but it's like an ETF, where what's in there are the companies that are publicly traded. So instead of investing in them, you know, directly yourself, you can choose from you could choose a portfolio that has 10, 15, 20 companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheets. So that's one way to go. But anyway, we've got to look for some very exciting times to look forward to. And this is no time to be pessimistic, okay? You guys take care, and we'll talk to you later.